Hello, everybody, and welcome to your golden ticket to success, freedom, and happiness. Maria Kay with you here today, and I am so over the moon to welcome Phyllis King. Hi, Phyllis.
Hi, Maria. It's wonderful to see you and be here today. Thanks for having me.
I am so eager to tell everyone about you and have you share your passions and messages. And Phyllis has coached over, wait for it, 12,000 people in her time in 20 different countries. Now that's massively impressive. She is known for her practical and down-to-earth approach, which I'm a big advocate of. And she's featured on CBS, NBC TV, radio programs across the US. She's written a book with Dr. Wayne Dyer, and her latest book is The Heart of the Matter, which is a journey to wholeness. And she also holds a BA in sociology. Phyllis, tell us, if you would, what perhaps series of events or individual event in your life helped to shape who you are, both personally today, but also in the work that you do?
Yes, well, I've been doing this a long time, so the story is a long one, so I'll try and keep it short for your listeners. I began as a professional psychic, and I still am that. I still do psychic readings. That's still part of who I am and something that's very natural for me. I had a lot of spontaneous experiences from childhood, which I didn't pay a lot of attention to. I had out-of-body experiences. I didn't know that's what they were in elementary school. When I was a teenager, I began having precognitive experiences primarily through dream state, meaning that I would go to sleep, have a dream, wake up. Within 24 to 48 hours, that dream would occur. Again, I found these things interesting, but I never spoke about them. I just sort of kept them to myself. But when I was 19, a friend of mine in my circle of friends died in a car accident, and about 3 months after he passed, he showed up in my house, and that was not only a terrifying experience to have a ghost in my house, but it was awe-inspiring at the same time. And at that moment, a knowing was placed in my awareness that life didn't end with the body. And what I mean by that, a knowing, is that I knew it to the cellular level. I knew that there was more to this life. And so although I was terrified in that moment and my heart was pounding, I also had an incredible sense of peace. And that single experience really stimulated a voracious appetite in me to learn about spiritual information and to learn what psychic was. I didn't know what psychic was, but I needed to understand who I was, what this stuff was, what it meant in the context of religion and God and anything. And so it wasn't about anything other than understanding myself. So fast forward a few years from that point of a lot of classes and study and different fun, crazy, wild, wonderful things, I had begun doing psychic readings professionally. And I got really great at doing things like, or emulating very well-known psychics in terms of, I'm going to give you a name or an address. I'm going to give you something that makes you think I'm real. And I got really good at it, and I was kind of impressed with myself for a while. And then I found it to be pretty empty. I thought, okay, so I've told you something you already know, so what? And then I thought about what has made the difference in my own life. And it was really understanding what I'm doing here on this planet, what my purpose, what my journey is, what I'm trying to grow, evolve, and contribute in the life. And so I began to focus on what that is for everybody. And so in my readings, I began to incorporate what I call a blueprint. I believe we came here with a certain outline, like an architect will draw up a blueprint. And there's things we absolutely want to contribute, learn about, and evolve beyond. And then I look at life themes, and it tells me a lot about what that person's soul is trying to do. And so in the context of my readings, I began to look at the person's question, like, what's my next job, or am I going to get that job? But then I look at what the soul's question is, and it might be different. And I look at those two things together. And so therein began the journey of how I psychic read to this day. And then as things progressed, it became more important to me to share the spiritual principles of how energy works and what we're doing on the planet in the context of the reading. And it became much more about teaching and coaching and empowering. And that's become most of my business at this point, even though I'm still and always will be a psychic.
I love that. I love how you decided that you almost wanted to send people away with a practical piece of, or a tool, or something that they could action pretty immediately to affect their life in a positive way, because I do understand what you mean. And it's so valuable when you do have the connection with with spirit, or whatever terminology you like to use. And I've seen it in action, but I've always felt that it almost was a bit of a dead end, really. So I love that you're doing that out in the world. It's so valuable. What reactions would you get? I mean, when people would come to you expecting just to simply get a message, perhaps from a loved one who's passed, and then you, or even just sort of, I guess, being told what to do, because I feel like in that arena that you kind of get, well, this is going to happen, or that's not going to happen. What reactions would you get when you would maybe take it to another level there? Were people receiving that well?
It's been an evolving process. So over the years, I've had different reactions, and people come to psychics for different reasons, and often they have an expectation of what it is you're supposed to do, or how you're supposed to do it, or the way you're supposed to give information. So I've always tried to meet somewhere in the middle. People want to know something. So I try and give them what they are asking about love, or about money, or about whatever, but not just the surface question. I also incorporate the spiritual point of view, and I try and weave it into the conversation in such a way that it's seamless and they can receive the whole picture, not just the compartmentalized point of view. But I've had various reactions. Most people really enjoy the process I take them through, because it's all-inclusive. It's a whole experience. It's not a compartmentalized view. And as I said, some people, not to my face necessarily, but some people want me to do it a certain way because they have their own agenda or their own need. And, they may not like it. But that's a minority, because for me in this business, most people are seekers. They're not just junkies trying to consume something. They're struggling, and they're trying to have answers in their lives that will really help their lives progress and evolve. And so they're really open to a more expanded perspective.
And exactly that, because you are, and I love this, because I do feel like we all have this job to do. We're here to teach and learn from each other, but there are many more people now on the planet, alive right now, who are here to invite those of us who perhaps aren't quite ready, or quite have the tools or the knowledge just yet, to invite them, just pull them forward a little bit at a time. And I love how you're incorporating, almost reconnecting people with their soul purpose, or realigning them with their soul path in what you're doing. So tell us more about how you incorporate that into your work today.
Well, there's always layers to questions. There's always layers to situations. So when I say, if someone wants to know, when am I going to get that job, or is this relationship going to work, there's layers to it. Well, there's a reason you're not going to get that job, or there's a reason you are, and there's a reason it's going to last 6 months or 6 years, or the same thing with the relationship. And so I start trying to I look at everything in an energetic perspective. Everything's moving around to me, and things have frequencies and vibrations, and situations take on momentums, and that's the free will piece to a certain degree, where what we contribute to those momentums will determine those outcomes, or how they expand or materialize. So I try and help people see and connect to their own rhythms and see for themselves. So it's not just my opinion, but have the discussion that they actually can feel for themselves. Oh, I see what I'm doing. I see how this is working, and I now become empowered to either choose this thing or not. or to move away from the fear that's limiting my experience, or whatever it is. So it's really a conversation to try and have a shared understanding.
That's lovely. What would you say to anyone in our audience perhaps hasn't come across the concept of soul contract or soul purpose or that kind of way of thinking, who maybe it's new to them? How would you sort of put it to them in quite simple terms?
Well, in my world, we're on a continuum, and the human experience is one part of that continuum, having a physical experience, and for me, because as we heard at the top of the hour, having experienced seeing dead people, I have an awareness that life doesn't end with the body, so that gives me a more grounded or solid belief in life beyond the body. But in essence, it's just the soul we come here, in my perspective, to expand, to grow, to learn, to contribute in some way. And it's a collective experience. It's not just I'm here or you're here, that we're doing it together. And so in the context of this collective consciousness moving forward, the structure, I call it, is a blueprint, which is essentially a schematic, which says I want to learn these certain things, I want to grow in these certain ways, I want to contribute these certain things in this period of time. And I'm going to do that with a certain core group of people, and there will be things that are fluid and things that aren't, things I can change and things that I can't. And some of the agreements and things I will fulfill, and some of them I won't. And that's really the blueprint. And it changes lifetime to lifetime if you ascribe to the idea that there's more than one lifetime. No one really has to believe that if they don't want to, if that doesn't feel natural to them. But most people can get behind the idea that there are certain things that really resonate with them, certain things that they are drawn to or compelled to do, or certain fears or certain reoccurring patterns they can't break free from. And those, to me, also lie in the context of the blueprint and the life theme. So, it doesn't matter how we talk about it, in what language, we can still come to terms or have a meaningful conversation about what's going on in their life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you that, it's, and I feel that anyone listening today will have some interest in this type of way, thought pattern or way of thinking or belief system, so, but not perhaps the knowledge. So that was great. That was lovely. My next question, I think, is I'm really interested because I'm just I'm so excited to have you and pick your brains and have you share that with our audience, especially with all the experience that you've had. Now, we all know that life isn't always easy and isn't always. Some people would say it's not. Life hasn't been good to me, or I had a colourful life, or whatever. However you may want to describe the experiences that you have had. What would you say to somebody who has had some real trauma in their life, and is still perhaps bearing the scars and hasn't quite bounced back and feeling perhaps, and it's easily done, we can easily fall into that victim state of it happened to me, or why me? My son will often say, oh, it's just my luck, and he's only 13, and I'm very trying to sort of teach him what we know to be real is that we control our reality. We have we can create what we want. But just to give a bit more of a deeper explanation there, to tie it in with maybe the agreements that we made before we came into the body that we're in right now, and maybe have you give some kind of insight that would help somebody who's been through trauma make peace with those things and those events in their life.
Well, that's a gigantic question, but with about 5 parts to it. That we could do a whole show just on that. But
next time.
There's 2 parts that I'll answer that I think that people can have a takeaway from. And the trick, if there is a trick, part number 1 is learning how to see the value in your experience, not just what it took from me. You know, loss is a natural part of living. And certainly in Western culture, we identify happiness with the lack of discomfort or, you know, with pleasure and ease. And that's an egoic, physical perspective on life. The soul that has a different agenda. It doesn't care about happy. It cares about, am I expanding into my wholeness? Am I becoming the fullness of who I am? And so in that quest, the balancing act in the human experience of trying to, you know, cope with life's challenges, if we want to call them that, you know, it's a determined process of learning to train your perspective. So it's a discipline of it. Like if you were going to the gym to lift weights, and you start out with 2 pounds, and then a week later you raise it to 5 pounds and 10 pounds. The process of developing an expanded perspective takes time, it takes determination, and it's something you learn to embody and hold. And so, but you have to be committed to it. And the first few steps of getting into practicing an expanded perspective, you know, you have to defeat the old patterning and habitual programming of how we've responded to life. And so if we've had a victim mentality for whatever reason, maybe we've been victimized and that programming has been in us, we have to stay really conscious and awake when it's coming up and reject it. And say, oh yeah, I was beat up by my parents when I was a child, and now I think everybody's going to beat me up. Well, that's not true. I mean, it's true that you had that experience, but it's not true it will always happen. And then the next piece of that, as I said at the beginning of this sharing, is that we have to look for what's in it for us. You know, I had an experience of abuse in my childhood, but I do not feel like a victim. I'm actually appreciative of my life experience because I don't judge it as good or bad any longer. It caused me to go into self-awareness. It caused me to become compassionate. It caused me to have so many skill sets that I might not ever have developed so that I can be in the role that I am now. So that takes us back. We have to see what we're getting from it, not just what it's taking from us. And then connecting ourselves spiritually to know that we can never be given a learning experience we don't need, that the divine is not inefficient in that way. And so it goes back to that expanded perspective that I'm more than a body, and I'm doing more than just this physical thing of going to work, going to the grocery store, and such. So it's a huge question you asked, Maria, and I tried to do it justice.
That was perfect. So in essence, what you're inviting our audience to do, if they're not already doing it, which I'm sure many of them already are, is to use perhaps their perceived traumas or breakdowns in life as an opportunity to expand and become more of who they really are.
And only the largest, you know, the most powerful, dignified, empowered souls would choose such experiences. And we choose because we want to overcome, and that's how we find out how magnificent we really are, and when we've gotten to the other side.
Can you repeat that? I absolutely, that's only the most, that sentence, because that was just so...
Only the most dignified and powerful spiritual beings take on these challenging circumstances, because those are the mechanisms through which we find out how magnificent we truly are when we have succeeded. And to finish that sentence, I would say that victory is always assured in life, whether it's life in the body or otherwise. And everyone is in a different space or place in the continuum. And if you aren't yet happy or don't yet have those things you want, it's only because the story isn't finished yet. And learning how to be at peace in your own continuum is really the name of the game.
Oh, that was such a juicy sentence. I had to ask you, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but it needed to be, you know, highlighted, I felt. So for anybody who is out there almost on the verge of breaking through, perhaps they've had a breakdown, many breakdowns, but they're feeling enough's enough, something needs to change, perhaps they're not quite sure how to do it. What tip or tool could you give them to help them maybe take one or the first step forwards?
Well, in that scenario, often people just need a little support. You know, they need to get some, either if it's a friend or a coach, or just go online, and there's a plethora of resources available on various websites and things. Just start digesting information that will counteract the internal spin, that will give you some, you know, uplifting information. Start to reprogram yourself. But, you know, reach out for help if you're at that tipping point. You know, and unfortunately, too many people think asking for help is a sign of weakness, and in actuality, it's a strategy for success, and learning to give to ourselves in that manner. But asking for help, and there's certainly a lot of it available.
Oh, I'm in total agreement. And in fact, years and years ago, when I was in that place of breakdown, as it were, one of the many times, I didn't know that yeah, I didn't know that you could reach out to. I didn't know that there were people doing this kind of work. I had no idea it existed, apart from, you know, Louise Hay's books and Wayne Dyer's books all those years ago, which were, you know, my saving grace, I have to say, in my late teens. I had no idea that there was a whole world of people like you and I now that people can reach out to. So I think that's a really great, and I love how you say it's a sign of strength rather than weakness. We need to really bring that up. So I'm interested to know what you do on a daily basis, Phyllis, to keep yourself in alignment and in your happy zone, and, you know, feeling really great and forward moving in your life. Do you have a daily practice?
Well, I do, I would say. I always start the day out in the morning by myself, trying to fill my mind with things I want to think about. You know, I try and plant whatever seeds I want in there to reinforce how I want my day to go. I also, at some point in my day, I always have some form of physical activity. That's something I need just to keep my endorphins up, and just to keep my body. You know, I honor my body. Yes, I'm a spiritual being, but I try to honor my body throughout the day. And then, and just in terms of the kind of work I do, you and I do, probably in somewhat similar ways, being able to just talk to people all day and help them, I find that amazingly invigorating, and it keeps me centered. And sometimes if I'm having a rough start to my day, I can't wait to get to my first client, because it gets me up and out of my own internal stuff.
I feel that too. Yeah, absolutely. And I love how I've never seen it that way before, but absolutely agree there.
Yeah. And then, you know, for me, having variety, you know, I don't know, it seems like you might be that way too. You know, I do one-on-one, I do groups, I speak, I have a radio show, I travel, I do a lot of different things so I can express myself in various ways and reach people in different ways. Some people really love one-on-one. Other people like groups. You know, other people just want a little bit from speaking, you know, in a live event or something. And so there's all different ways to deliver and help people get a little something and move a little further in their lives. And I get really excited about helping people become successful. And really just being able to do what I love for a career is what I do to keep balanced and centered.
Absolutely. So do you feel that, because you talked about success there as well, and seeing as the topic of our event is success, freedom and happiness, how do you feel they all go together? Can you have one without the other? How does it fit for you?
Well, everybody has their own definition of success. And I think that's an important question everyone needs to ask, what they think that means. And I do think they can all go together when I think about your question. For me, my definition is, do I feel comfortable in my own skin? That's success to me. You know, it's not how much money I have in my bank account or what my partner looks like or is doing, or are my children doing whatever. It's really a personal how I feel about myself in the world. And I think when you talk about freedom to do, for me, that's freedom to make my own choices when I want to make them, call my own schedule, spend my money how I want to spend it, go where I want to go, write what I want to write, talk about what I want. That's freedom as well. That's, again, going into the comfortable in my own skin. So I think those three are, they go hand in hand, but we do have to define it for ourselves first.
So it's very individual. So would you encourage our audience to spend some time delving into those three different areas for themselves? Is that what you're suggesting for them?
Oh, absolutely. You have to know your motivations. You have to know what's driving you to make your choices and to move about the cabin, as we say. So, what's causing you to go in the directions you're going to, because so often people are influenced by well-meaning family or friends, or making choices for reasons that aren't really their own, and then they wonder why they're not happy or not feeling good.
Absolutely. In fact, that's a question that I encourage all the time, is to ask yourself, why do I do what I do? Why am I doing this? Why have I been doing the same thing, for 20 years, or routine?
One of the most common questions I get on my radio show is when people will say, am I going to get such and such job? And I'll say, well, what is it you love to do? And they'll say, I don't know. And I go, well, that'd be a really good question to answer. That's what we all need to answer in this lifetime. What do I love? What's my purpose and my passion? Whether or not we do it for money is not the point. But when people don't know what they love, I cry inside over that statement.
I agree. In fact, I've come across it so many times with the women I work with, especially when we're kicking off a live retreat, and one of the first exercises is to list 10 things that you absolutely love to do, and many women have forgotten, and I'm sure it's true for men as well. Once we get into what I call the hamster wheel lifestyle, all those things kind of, they become secondary, and things like, going to work, driving the kids here and there, and as you say, doing the grocery shopping become, priorities, and what fills our soul, makes our heart sing, can take a back seat, and then we forget. So do more of what you love. I have an exercise that I encourage women to do, which is every day fill their love cup, where they do something every day to fill it up, and then when it's full, they can share it with their loved ones. So I know that you have an amazing free gift to share with our audience. Would you be able to just give them the information and get them all excited to come and find you?
I have a 45-minute webinar that I did about 3 or 4 years ago called Making the Connection to Your Abundance, and it still holds up. It's still a wonderful presentation. And in that, I talk about the 5 key elements that people really need to focus on if they want to attract more abundance into their lives. And I also talk about 5 common filters that people employ in their lives that impede their ability to be abundant. And then in that, sharing is also an exercise I call 10 minutes a day to change your life, which is in essence a mini vacation, 5 minutes at the beginning and the end of the day, to really put you into a high frequency attraction space. Really a lot of fun. And just some background on the energetic process of how things are created in life, how the creative process actually works, so you can wrap your head around that. So whether it's money or love or whatever it is you're trying to feel abundant in, you'll get a good dose of information as well as practical tools to solve that in your own life.
Awesome. We love the practical tools. Absolutely. They're so necessary. Well, that sounds like a very valuable gift. Thank you very much for sharing that with our audience. Could you end with one passionate message for our audience? If you had to pick one, and I know I hate it when people say to me, pick one thing, or what's your favorite this? It depends what mood I am or what headspace I'm in, but just for now, what comes through you to share?
Well, I love for people to be fearless in their lives. I talk to so many people because I coach people on becoming coaches, and I come across some talented and incredible people who are gifted and ready to be of service in the world, and they let fear and lack of confidence and different things get in the way of just expressing and doing their heart's desire. So I just encourage people to live fearlessly. Mistakes are wonderful. And those aren't failures. That's how we learn to be successful. And I just really encourage people to be passionate about their lives themselves with a fearless tenacity.
Thank you, Phyllis. That is a powerful message to end on. So on that note, I'm going to wish you a bliss-filled rest of your day and sending lots of love out to everybody. And until next time.